Coach, University of Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good to be back. Really productive bye week, I think, for our team. You know, one of those that you're dying to get back on the field, but also a lot of things that we needed to work on. Thought we were a very productive bye week with our team standpoint, and then also, it was very good for our staff to get out on the road recruiting. Saw a lot of guys here through the last couple of days. Very, very eager to get back on the field. I mean, there's no question about that. We, and a chance to do it not only here in front of our home fans, but with a night kickoff that we haven't had here in a while. That's it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're obviously playing a really good Iowa State team. A lot of history with those guys. We know the quality of team that's coming in here. You know, they've lost 3 games this year. All of them one-score games, and certainly watching those games, you can make an argument probably should have won at least a couple of them. So very, very capable, very good on both sides of the ball. They're playing, well defensively again, like they have the last couple of years. Frustrating people, shutting a lot of really good offenses down or limiting them. And then offensively, you can tell, with the quarterback returning, you see certainly some progress there. They've been pretty explosive this year, making a lot of big plays. The young running backs also done a nice job. So they've had a nice 1-2 punch there in the backfield. They're creative as they always are. So I mean, this will be a battle. It has been the last couple of years with those guys. I've said it many times, but Coach Campbell and that staff have done an outstanding job there, and you see their team continuing to progress and doing a lot of really good things. So we're excited to play them. Excited to play here. Prime time, 7 o'clock under the lights. Ought to be a heck of an atmosphere. I know our fans will be excited about it just as much as our team is. So certainly can't wait to get back out there.
Okay, we'll start with Al.
Do you foresee Jordan Kelly and Caleb Kelly playing this year, the 4 games, redshirt, and what situation with Cal Katera?
Jordan and Caleb, they're both practicing full go with us now. It'll be just a week-to-week determination, and kind of looking at it from 2 points of view. One, getting them ready to play. I said last week, being cleared and then being ready to play a lot of times are 2 different things, especially when you're coming off significant injuries like those 2 were. But they've made a lot of progress. It's nice to know that they're available to help us, and if we get to a point where where they can step out on the field and make a difference, then we're certainly going to play them. We know that that we have the red shirt deal to play around with with Caleb, and so but we got to get to a point where he's confident, we're confident in him, but it's something we're aware of and having ongoing conversations about. Cal Katera, honestly, along with the other injured guys that were, that we talked about last week, we're still in wait-and-see mode with those guys. I mean, the bye week was, like any injured player, the bye week was good for them. There was some added time to rest, recover, rehab, all that for all of those guys. But, we're going to get all of them back this week, see how much they progressed here through the weekend and make a determination later in the week.
James Hale.
Lincoln, you played great defense in the first 7 games and not so good against Kansas State. How do you get back to playing like you were playing so well in the first 7? And you got 2 weeks to get it done, so you see progress towards doing that?
Yeah, we had a good week, but we've got to have another good week now and get ready to go play a good football team. We need to do the things well that we did the first 7, and we did a lot of things well. We got off the field, especially in the long yardage situations, and then we've got to create some turnovers. I mean, we've put ourselves in a tough position really the last 4 games. When you don't create turnovers, you have to play very well. And against, like I said last week, against our opponents, a lot of times that means 4 downs, not 3 downs, as far as getting people off the field. And so we got to get some turnovers. And when we get these guys in long yardage situations, we've got to do like we did in the first 7 weeks and get off the field and get the ball back to the offense.
John Hoover.
A couple of years ago, when it seemed like every week we were asking you, hey, how do you handle this? Your first one of these, well, a couple of years ago it was your first loss. How do you feel like you handled that looking back on it? And did it change you as a coach? Did it alert you to some things that you maybe weren't prepared for?
If you judge, I don't ever say me, but if you judge by that team that year, we handled it pretty darn good, as we have we hadn't had many losses around here in the last few years, but we've handled most of them pretty well, I think. Yeah, it was different experience than that. I mean, kind of like I said last week, every loss at OU is shocking, and it hits you different. It hits you hard, and so this one was no different. But the opportunities after it are no different either. It's a chance for us to really rally and as a team. We know the opportunities that are in front of us, and we know what we can do if we play our style of ball and play to the level that we expect, regardless of what the expectations are on the outside. And so that's been our primary focus here throughout the week, and we'll be here throughout the rest of the year. And so it's a fight each and every week, and you got to be ready to bring your very best. And I think if we do that, we'll be in good shape.
How are you different now as a coach than you were 2 years ago?
Yeah, a lot more. Just have gone through a lot more experiences. There's not as much new. I mean, every team's new in a sense, but you can relate these situations back to other ones that you've been in. But what you can't get caught up in, like I told the team, just because we've done this before, rallied from a loss and had championship seasons, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Now, it means we know it's possible. It means we know what the blueprint is to do it, but we've got to go put it into action. One of the things that, that we didn't do well, a week ago, the areas that we know we have to improve, everybody's got to make a conscious effort to do that. And then we've got to be able to sustain that throughout the rest of this run.
Jason Kersey.
Lincoln, I know we've talked to you a lot about the running back carries, but I'm curious from this perspective, are you satisfied or comfortable with the decisions Jalen makes on option plays generally?
On option plays?
Yeah, just when he has the choice to keep or give the ball.
Yeah, no, he's done pretty well with it. I mean, if he wasn't, we wouldn't keep giving him that option, but he's, there's no doubt we want to get all these skill players involved. I get that, but I mean, we are averaging like almost 10 yards a play, so we're doing some decent things too.
Barry Trammell.
Yeah, you talk about getting turnovers, Lincoln. Brock Purdy had been really good at protecting the ball. I think he'd thrown 3 or 4 interceptions all season. Then in the last 8 minutes against OSU, he throws 3. When you watch film, can you learn something from like whatever OSU did, if anything, or is that just happenstance that he sort of had a turnover flurry there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, OSU got out to a quick lead in that game, which I think anytime you can make your opponents play from behind. I know that the game was pretty tight when a few of those interceptions, obviously the last couple happened. But if you can get the lead or get out to, it makes a difference in the game. It does. And so, playing well early. And then, I don't know if there was anything magical defensively there. I mean, I think you saw guys capitalizing on mistakes. And, and that's, some of it is making your own luck and tipping balls or getting more pressure on the quarterback or making an active play in the secondary. But also, when those opportunities come, when your opponents do make mistakes, then you have to capitalize on, especially against good teams. And that's, we've got to create more opportunities for turnovers. But if you go back and look in the last several games, we've had several opportunities where they're right there in front of us. We got to make the play, and we've got to catch the ball. We got to get on the ball on the ground, and so that's certainly been a focus point for us. Our guys are aware of it, and they know how much of a factor it is. I mean, it's pretty amazing the quality of defense that we played in the first 7 with the number of times that we turned people over. I mean, really, and if we can get to the level we want to be in the turnovers and combine those two things, then you could have a pretty special group.
Jenny Carlson.
Lincoln, one of the pretty good things that might have got overshadowed by stuff that went wrong at K-State was CD. His play, he just continues to have huge numbers, electric plays. What have you been most impressed with just as he's continued to build on that sort of chapter after chapter of excellence this year?
Yeah, he stayed hungry to improve. And we always try to coach our best players the hardest. And sometimes guys say they want that, but then they don't really want that. And he's been on a constant climb to improve, and you saw it really in spring ball. And the way, I know we've talked about it a bunch, but the way he's changed his body, and he's just continued to get better and better. He practices hard. He takes hard coaching. has never kind of gotten to a point here where, he feels like he's too good to all of a sudden get coached hard or pointed out the things that he needs to do better. He takes them and he goes and he works on them. And so he's just made himself a much more complete player. And, he continues to make a lot of big plays.
Ryan Aber.
Lincoln, I know you said that the kicking competition was close between Callum and Gabe entering the season, but I imagine you never really know what you're going to get with those guys until you throw them out there.
Yeah.
What's been the most impressive thing about the way Gabe has handled things since he's been in that role?
Yeah, just probably the unexpected nature of how it happened. Here he is doing two different roles for us as a young guy, and he's handled it well. But he's always kind of been one of those guys. Even when we do some things in practice to simulate, pressure kicks or an overtime period or whatever it is, and all the ones like that, not that we've had, he seems to always make them. He does. He just, he might go out and hit, 7 to 10 or 8 to 10 in a normal field goal period, but all of a sudden you give him kind of a pressure, more real life kick in that scenario. He'd always done really well. So you saw he kind of had the stomach for it, and and I think he's kicking with confidence now, and I think also the confidence he has in our field goal team, or the protection, and Casey and Connor has a lot to do with it. A young kicker having an experienced snapper and a really, really good holder makes a huge, huge difference. It's almost like a young golfer having an elite caddy, almost in a way. It's having those guys there makes a big difference.
I see on the depth chart that Ramondre Stevenson is an or at running back, meaning possible starter. Are we going to see more of him? Is a chance we'll see more of him? And if so, why?
I would say that room is still, really ongoing. It's really week to week for us right now. We feel like we got multiple guys in there that are worthy of being starters, that all do nice things. They've all improved on their weaknesses. So it's a deep group, and now having TJ back, it's we've been able to stay pretty healthy in there too. So it's like we said, those guys are going to be probably the freshest group of backs in the country going into championship November, and that's when you typically need those guys the most. So hopefully we get a good dose of all of them.
Boppers, Billo.
Yeah, Lincoln, Brees Hall went to the same school as Marcus Hicks, so I assume you guys got to watch him play and get to know him. What do you remember about him throughout high school, and how different is Iowa State since he's become more prominent? Yeah,
we thought he was a really good player. We certainly were aware of him, recruited him some, evaluated him quite a bit, thought a lot of him, knew Iowa State ended up getting a heck of a player there, so I would say not much surprise that he's done well, and then they do a good job, schematically, of putting him in some good positions, and he's made a lot of really, really nice clutch plays for them. And you're right, they've certainly, as he's been able to get loose in the run game, it's certainly made them a little more versatile, a little tougher to defend.
Garrett Emig.
Yeah, Lincoln, did Kansas State do anything to you, to your defense, that you think that future opponents can exploit, or are they so unique in attacking? And they do seem to be a little unique in the way they attack defenses with the run game especially. Do you consider, because K-State is so, you consider that to be sort of an anomaly, and that's maybe not something that Matt Campbell or Matt Rule is looking to, with their scheme, take advantage of it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's an anomaly. I think everybody has their own little niche, and everybody does things a little bit different. But no, it's not unusual if a team had success with something offensively or defensively to see that in the coming weeks. It's a copycat game. We'll have to defend some of the things there that we didn't defend well. That's no surprise. The biggest thing they did is they beat us up in long yardage situations, and so that's, I know it feels like we've said that, a lot in the last couple of weeks, but that's the most unique thing that happened in that game was that right there. We've been so good in long yardage, and we're not in that game. And the things they did, I don't know, were real magical. There was nothing just, crazy new schematic. It was, they played better football than we did. And will you buy a play here and there that that maybe hurts you that somebody else wants to try, sure. But I mean, that is every week. I mean, that's something we deal with on a weekly basis. Whether you win 60-20 or you lose the ball game, there's always a couple of plays that get you, and a lot of times you end up seeing them again.
Dean Blevins?
Lincoln, I'm sure you feel you need to establish some run. Every game, teams want to do that. What's the matchup like between your offensive line and Iowa State's front? Because they are a good defense, but what about that battle there?
Yeah, no, it'll be a good battle. They're a pretty experienced group up there. Several guys that we've been playing against for a long time. And then they're also very good in the linebacking core, and the way they involve their secondary guys in the run fits. I mean, they're unique that way. They do a great job of coaching it. It's tough, and they've obviously had a lot of success with it. So no, it'll definitely be a key battle. I mean, they play with 3 defensive linemen primarily, but you're going to end up again blocking them from all kinds of different angles, all kinds of different fits, and so it's it's mentally as challenging as it is going to be physically as well. And but it's definitely going to be key. I mean, you got to make your plays against them because they're very good at what they do.
Okay, from the back to Daniel Dwyer.
Lincoln, you and Matt Campbell took over your respective programs within a year of each other. You talked about your growth since that first loss to them. What about him has maybe impressed you or stuck out to him and what he's been able to do with that program coming from the MAC?
Well, he made a difference early, in the way they played, and then they've been able to sustain it through some different players. They've had some good players that they've lost, guys have gotten drafted, guys that are making a lot of plays even on Sundays right now that did a good job for them, but they've been able to sustain their, the way they play, the success. You can tell they certainly believe. They play hard. They're very, very well schemed on all sides. I mean, they competitive each and every game. Seems like they almost always give themselves a chance to win. And so I think that's one of the best compliments you can give any coach is they're able to do it with different people and able to sustain it. And he's certainly done that there.
Okay, Sam Brown.
Coach, you and Coach Grinch both after the Kansas State game talked about how at times there was kind of the players had lost trust in each other a little bit. And I meant to ask last week, but I never got the chance to. First of all, did that shock you looking back on it, given the way the team had played leading up to that point? And how do you go about reinstilling that when you've got a week off to really focus on and hone into those things that you've been looking to improve? And how do you think they've done in that process?
Well, I mean, adversity, it comes in different forms and fashions, and it's a test each time. Just because you do it, several times in a row doesn't mean you're going to do it the next time. You got to be ready to do your very best and be ready to trust it even in the most critical moments. And we had some things that didn't go our way in the game. We were able to trust it enough to fight back and give ourselves ultimately a chance to win. But you go back and look, and too many times in the middle of the game we didn't, and that's what ultimately led to to having the deficit that we had to overcome. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a learning experience for our guys. I think it's something that if we do learn from it, when we get in more adverse situations throughout the season, we'll be able to draw back on it and understand maybe what we didn't do well in a situation and what we need to do better the next time, and know how much that's going to impact the end result of the game.
Barry Trammell.
Yeah, Lincoln, I know you can't do anything about it, but the committee comes out with its first rankings tomorrow night. How curious are you to see where you're at, considering you're in a little bit more precarious spot than in the previous years because of a lot of different factors? Well, how much will you bother?
Zero. Just win. You win games. You get a chance to win your league. You win this league, then things take care of themselves. We've seen that as much as anybody over the last few years. So we got a lot of great opportunities coming up. We got to take care of ourselves right now and just try to win every single game that we possibly can. And so, and then after that, it's out of our control. So we just got to go win.
So you won't watch it, or
I won't.
Will you let somebody tell you where you're ranked?
Not that crazy about it. I just don't put stock in it. It just doesn't. Go look where we were ranked, the previous years after we lost the game. I mean, it just, there's so much left to happen. And I I know this, you keep winning and you win your league championship, and if you keep winning and doing the things that you can and play to your potential as a team, those things tend to work themselves out. And like I said, we've seen it. So it just, not trying to hide away from it. I just know that just from experience, it does not matter right now. It really doesn't. And the only one that matters is that one at the very end.
Tyler Palmatier.
Lincoln, kind of in the same vein there, but you may not worry about the rankings. What about when it comes down to the teams that are playing on Saturday that you guys could benefit from having them lose? Is it hard for you to unplug and not kind of look at those results or watch those games? Have you found yourself watching those games in the past?
I would say the only one I can remember watching much in the past was last year after we beat Texas in the Big 12, and I got home and saw the last, 8 to 10 minutes of the Bama-Georgia game, just because we'd done all we could at that point, and then you knew that, that result was going to affect us. But, we didn't have another game the next week. If we'd had another game, I wouldn't have been watching that one either. So, I see the results at the end of the week, and I occasionally, especially if we have an early game, I occasionally flip through some of the other games. But until we've done all we can do, then none of that stuff matters. I've got to do my job the best I can. Our players have got to do their job the best they can. And if we do that, then, we'll give ourselves a chance to, hopefully put ourselves in that conversation.
Do you like how the Bama quarterback played at the end of that game?
What's the Bama-Georgia game? Yeah, he did all right.
That's all for the queue. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Bob?
Obviously, it was a night game. Recruits coming in. How difficult a process is it to try to find the right official host for these kids? And then talking to a lot of them this year, they mentioned Caleb Kelly time and time again. What makes him such a great ambassador of what you're trying to show?
No, yeah, it's the host deal's not always easy, just because you've got guys that are preoccupied with playing the game. That's a lot of your guys, because we've been playing so many people, and then finding the right person. We've got a lot of guys that are very good at it. That they care about it. They're good representatives of our team and our university, and comfortable in that role. And so we've been lucky. We've had a lot of unselfish guys that have wanted to do it and done a great job. But it is, pairing those guys up with the best person you can, and finding somebody that maybe is not as involved with the game. There's a lot that goes into it.
Jenny Carlson?
Lincoln, something we hadn't seen much out of your team before that K-State game, defensively, third down struggles, especially on third and long. They just really had a hard time getting off the field. And offensively, the stagnation you guys had in that third quarter. As you went back and looked at those two issues, were you able to put your finger on answers for either of those things? Yeah, I think we struggled to get any momentum there in the third quarter, really, on any of the three sides. We had the defensive errors I thought we played hard in that quarter. I thought we had a little bit more juice, especially coming out of half, and even at different times. But I thought we got a little frantic. We made more just mental mistakes. We gave them some plays just totally based on mistakes, and did some of the same thing offensively. I think there was a frustration there offensively, especially. I think we had the 1 3 and out, and then after we fumbled the kickoff return, they started to separate. Felt like our guys felt like really hadn't even had the ball, and so I thought there was a little frantic there too. And and sometimes that happens in the middle of the fight, and you got to remind yourself, of what it takes in that moment to get out of it and get that momentum back. And we got one spark play from CD on the screen, and then we took off from there. And so, it's a learning experience. It's the third quarter has traditionally been a really good quarter for this football team. And we're going to be in some other tight ones where we're going to have to come out of there and play well, and we've got to learn from it.
Eric Bailey?
Lincoln, we talked to Jalen a little while ago, and his attitude was just going well. 1-0 this week. What's he been like since the loss with his leadership?
Yeah, he's a lot of our leaders have stepped up and been vocal about what we need to do, especially our guys that have been there before, that have been in these dogfights, that understand, what playing great ball in the month of November is all about, and and what it takes to to play at our best and to overcome any tough situations like that.
For K-State, or was the recovery more difficult maybe?
It's tough to compare. I mean, it's different opponents. It's a different team. A lot new about this team right now. I mean, I think there was disappointment. I mean, I think it's probably I would say shock. I mean, because, kind of like Iowa State 2 years ago when we got beat up here, nobody else thought they were pretty good, and we left saying, we didn't play very good, but they're pretty good, and they showed that. And I think Kansas State's a pretty good football team, and when you don't play very good, you're going to get beat. So I don't think there was a shock that it happened. I think there was disappointment on the things that we can control and could have controlled, that if we do one of the 50 better, we win the football game. And so disappointment, but then a quick refocus because we know what we've got in front of us. And I thought the team bounced back and had an extremely competitive week of practice, and they will absolutely be ready to play Saturday at 7.
Jason Kersey.
Again, coming off the road recruiting, I know that you can't talk about specific guys, but right now you guys don't have a quarterback committed for the next class, and you have 2 guys coming back next year. How do you plan on taking a quarterback in this class? How are you thinking about that?
I get the question. I don't know if that's something I'd want to sit up here and talk about, honestly. I mean, it's we evaluate every position, and think about the future, and I think just we look at every position the same as, do we feel like we have what we need next year and the coming years to win championships? If the answer's yes, and sometimes we stand pat. The answer's no, then we move. But from a strategy standpoint, don't know that I'd want to go any further than that. Sorry.
Lee Benson.
Coach, I'm not sure how much you want to get into this considering you call the plays, but on the topic of takeaways, are you seeing them in practice during team, and it's just something that's not transitioning into the live action at all?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. No, we take away the ball in practice. We do. And I know it's emphasized like crazy. We've got to settle in and be confident and just go make those plays in the games. I mean, like I said, we're giving ourselves opportunities, and we got to create more opportunities too. And that's coaching, playing, everything. We certainly have to create more opportunities, but and we've had some guys play extremely well against us. I thought the Kansas State guy, quarterback, played a really, really good game, but even as good as he played, he gave us some golden opportunities. And you play good teams, especially teams, and at OU, I mean, you're always going to get everybody's best, and you better be ready to make your plays when you can.
Gary Trammell.
Yeah, Lincoln, Iowa State 2 years ago sort of had a new defensive style to play against you. Mm-hmm. Less rush, more dropped. Have you seen that spread through the Big 12?
Absolutely.
People say that's a lot more common than it used to be. And does that make it easier for you guys to get ready for when you see it more often?
No, it's definitely been a trend in this league. Not like everybody's gone wholesale to it, but you see some form or fashion of it from a lot of people in this league. I think it's what they do is good, and Iowa State is unique enough that, it's like anything else. You can go copy a few parts of it, but they know what they're doing. They know their adjustments. Their kids play it extremely well. They play their tails off. So, it's a good combination, and they got something they believe in and have stuck with and had a lot of success with. So, I don't know if it makes it easier or not. It's maybe not as foreign as maybe it was to everybody a few years ago, but it's probably what they do is good, but how they do it, the way they play it, they're as good as anybody as with that type of scheme.
Is it some of the stuff you saw in the early days of Leach at Tech? Remember, in 2000, OSU had a 2-man rush for the Bedlam game.
Yeah.
Did you guys see some of that stuff early?
Yeah, no, it does. There are some similarities from back to early days at Tech, especially against us at Tech, because we weren't running the ball any. So a lot of teams figured I'd just rush 2 or 3 guys and drop everybody into coverage. So there's certainly some of the principles there that you see that maybe carry over.
Okay, last question, Keegan Renaud.
You said Caleb Kelly was practicing full go with you guys. Do you guys have a position for him yet? Is he playing inside? Is he a rush, nickel?
He could do a few different things for us. Primary position certainly still inside linebacker, but with his experience, playing at different positions, I wouldn't rule anything out.
And With his potential red shirt, is that just a different situation for you, just considering that his 4 games could start at Bedlam or, TCU and then run into the playoff, and if, say, you guys make the national championship, potentially burn his red shirt in that game?
Yeah, all things that we're considering with it. It's going to be a combination of, keeping the 4-game deal in mind, but also, like I said earlier, just, when is he ready to help this team and go make a difference? So we'll just try to balance all that out the best we can.